All right, hey guys, this is Gwen's song again. It's been about a week, and it is very late for me at the time of this recording, but I do not see any other time for me to record at this moment. So, gonna be a little tired. Just want to let you guys know first off. There's a couple things before we get started on part two here um, that I wanted to cover just before we, got right back into it. I got some feedback from coworkers. Um, So I just want to cover really quick. In the first part, I had this sketch here. I want to clarify, if you're doing this in pencil, you want to make sure that your sketch is light. For me, it is easier to toggle. I can change the opacity at any point because I'm doing this digitally. I had someone tell me that they had their sketch too dark, and because I didn't cover it, they didn't know not to do that. So yeah, I just want to make sure that was covered really quick. Make sure when you do a first starting sketch that you do the lines lighter, just so that when you put in the full color or an outline, you don't get messed up by all these rough lines. Okay. Let's see. What else was I supposed to cover? Okay. There's one more thing I wanted to state before starting. I had some people also tell me that when I started doing the colors here that they were a little off, and as they went on, they said it looked fine. I wanted to cover really quick why that kind of happens with me, and I don't know 100% sure why this is something that I do. Um, from an artistic perspective, there we go, there's flub number one of the video. From an artistic perspective, you do kind of want to start out light with any kind of coloring that you do. The reason being, if you go too dark, there's really no way to lighten it except with an eraser if you're doing like just regular pencil. Um, because if you go too dark and you can't erase it, it kind of ruins the drawing. So I have a tendency to go light for that reason. And as for the fact that the tiger kind of looks more cream colored than orange like a regular tiger, I have this weird thing that doesn't make sense, but for me it just kind of happens. My colors end up being not very bright or saturated at first, and you can see this in my speed paints as well. So I'm going to show you really quick over here. I have this thing here where I can adjust the colors, increase the saturation. I don't know if you can see that here. Decrease the value to make it darker. It would help if I was on the right layer. Let me fix that. So I can increase the saturation, see how it's a little more orange now since I turned that up, and then I can darken it as well to emphasize all the colors here. I'm not going to do that right now, so I'm going to hit cancel, but that's something I usually do at the end of my drawings just to make them more vibrant. I don't know why that's a thing with me, so I just wanted to make sure that was covered really quick before I actually got into it. I think, let me take that off of my list of topics here really quick. I don't know if you can hear that on my phone. I'm doing this a little differently just so there's less clutter on the screen. Alright, and with that, I'm going to go ahead and start my timer here. I think an hour worked so far since the last time, so I'm going to do that again. Here we go. Okay. Another thing that everyone mentioned before was I didn't really go over pencil techniques, and, well, I did, but not for a very long period of time. So I'm going to kind of try to go over that. It's kind of hard to go over something that you kind of just do. Like you start to do something and the process, you lose track of time and the process just kind of happens. But I'm going to do the best that I can here. Let's see. So I think we've got some of the colors blocked in over here. So from here, I'm going to start blocking in like the frame of the colors. This is something that some artists do as well. They block in colors or even grayscale everything before even adding color. I like to just go straight into color, but you do what feels more natural and comfortable to you when you're starting out your process. So I'm going to block in these colors, try to keep the the form here. I'm gonna add a little bit of shading here just so I can see the shapes. And I'll add the detail of the fur a little later. With a regular pencil, this might be a little bit harder. I'm doing this quickly because with a digital program, it's a little easier to do that. When you're adding fur to a drawing, and I'll show this a little bit later, I can easily blend this together, but you kind of want to do little, even smaller strokes than what I'm doing here. Because fur can be a little bit patchy if you notice. Let's see if I can zoom in on this picture here. See how it kind of sticks out a little bit, kind of frays a bit. When you're doing this in regular pencil, you kind of want to do smaller strokes to help blend it in a little bit better. And my detailed blender here, over here, makes it easier. Help if I had this set to the right size. There we go. Oh, maybe a little smaller. Makes it a little easier to blend it in together. And you'll notice over here, if you blend too much, the detail can sometimes get ruined in the mess. So, like I said, with regular pencil, it's not as easy to fix. With digital, I can just go over the lines again and then add a little bit darker patches of fur to make up for the extra blending that I do. But let's go back to blocking in some of this color. Zoom out of the sky really quick. Let's see. And if you're doing this digitally, I would recommend keeping an eye on the layers over here if that's if that's the program you're using. When I was trying to show the saturation, I was on the wrong layer, and this kind of didn't really do anything. So, especially if you're doing multiple layers on a drawing. I've done this many times. You might see that in some of my speed paints, if that's something you're interested in. You want to make sure that you're on the right layer, because if you're not on the right layer for certain colors, you can get yourself messed up. And if you're doing it digitally, it won't ruin the drawing. It'll just set you back a little bit, which can be annoying if you've worked a long time on a drawing. I only recommend that from personal experience. I know some people prefer what I'm doing here on a single layer, but again, if I started doing this on like the sketch layer here, it would set me back pretty far after realizing that. Let's see. Where else can I block in with the orange? I did have a few other topics on here. I don't know if that's going to be something anybody's interested in listening to, but another thing, my the coworker that asked for this and her son, we talked about YouTube very briefly and how the audience, well, not the audience in general, but how sometimes, when you're first starting out, it can be kind of tricky. Maybe that's not the right word. It's not something I want to discourage. I've been very lucky with it, but I know like when you're young and you want to start something new, how do I want to put this? It's important to put yourself out there if this is something you want to do for a living, but you have to remember that not everybody is going to be so passionate about what you're doing. You're going to get some backlash probably, and it could also be discouraging if you don't get, the feedback or the comments or the subscribers you're looking for right away. I've been very lucky with this. I don't have a lot of subscribers, and I'm okay with that. I'm not really here for that. I just want to do what I love, and if somebody can learn from me, that's great. If not, then maybe they'll just enjoy watching the process sped up. I don't know. But if this is something you want to do, like drawing in general, and then showing the process, likes, comments, subscribers, like that's not really an important thing to look for. Feedback, yes, but it's really more about what you're creating and Um, you always want to improve, and sometimes doing stuff like this is not always the best way to get started. So again, I don't want to discourage this type of thing because I'm having fun with this. This is great. Um, but if you're looking to get famous from this, that's not the right type of goal to have, in my personal opinion. Some people have made it lucky with YouTube, but I don't want to say it's not a realistic goal because, again, some people have, you know, done this sort of thing and have profited from it. But it doesn't happen overnight, and it's not something you can expect right away. So, again, I don't want to discourage it, but if that's what you're expecting from this sort of platform, I would not jump straight into it. I would think about what you want, and just in general, and go from there. You don't want to rush into something and regret it later on. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but I just wanted to cover that before I forgot. And again, I've been very lucky at all of the subscribers that I have so far. You guys have been great. Um, just feedback in general has been nice. And part of it, getting feedback, I've been a little bit neglectful on. I don't reply as quickly. I don't check it as often as I do on my main site, DeviantArt. I check DeviantArt daily. YouTube, I usually check the notifications once a week when I go to upload uh, the video that I'm posting that day. So usually it's only once a week. So maybe I should fix that and check it daily just to make sure that if people are trying to get a hold of me there, I can do that. But other than that, um, yeah, it's just a matter of improving yourself, and that's really the reason, besides helping out friends, why I do this. Hopefully that makes sense, and the whole YouTube thing makes a little more sense as well. Let's see. Let's move on to the different grays here now. That might be a little too dark, but we can always fix that later. Again, it's an easier digital. Here's flub number 2. I'm very tired, so I apologize in advance. I think I already apologized at the start of this, but I am very tired. I have been social for once outside of work and this, so I'm probably gonna flub more than I did in the last video. So again, apologies. Let's see here. I also wanted to talk about, there was something else that my coworker brought up, and that was transferring certain drawings to a canvas. She mentioned a drawing that her son did of a tiger, which she showed me, and I loved it. Keep up the good work if you're listening. So to transfer drawings, there's a couple of different ways to do it if you're interested. Digitally, obviously, I can copy this pretty easily. But when you're doing this traditionally and you want to transfer like an outline of what you wanted to do later on, and there's a couple ways to do this. The first one is probably a little bit more expensive. That involves what is called a light box. What that does is, with lighter paper, you could set the original down on the light box and put a piece of tracing paper on top, trace over your own work. Notice how I said your own work, because that way it's not plagiarism, you're not taking it from anybody else, it's still your drawing. And then you can trace it on there, and then if you if you use some charcoal on the back of that paper, you can, again, trace over the transfer paper that you have. I just did a hand motion that you guys can't see. Don't know why I did that. and then press hard with pen on the original uh, lines of the sketch paper that you used, or the transfer paper, it'll transfer it over to either a canvas or another piece of paper. That I have found is the harder way to do it, or not the harder way, the more expensive way to do it. I think it's more efficient because it's there, you already have it, and then you're not drawing on the back of your own original paper. Another thing you can do is with the original is again sketch on the not sketch. Sorry, I'm using the wrong words. I'm very, very out of it. On the original paper, you can do the same thing. You can put the charcoal on the back. Sorry, I'm trying to get my thoughts together. Let me block in these colors really quick and collect myself, get a drink of tea. Sorry about that. Or again, you can use the transfer paper on the original. I would recommend doing that lightly just so you don't ruin the original. And then you can do the same thing. You can do the charcoal on the back of the transfer paper and outline the pen on that. Hopefully that made sense. I can always elaborate or write that down in the description to elaborate a little bit more. I hope that made a little bit of sense. But if anybody has questions, you can let me know. I'll try to answer them as best as I can and as quickly as I can. I'm going to make an effort to be more more social on here just because I know more people are commenting and more people are trying to reach out. Let's see here. There was one more topic that I had. I might as well cover while I'm trying to block in these colors. I asked some people on DeviantArt if they had any topics that they wanted me to cover while I was doing this, and somebody brought up something really interesting that I had not considered. Let's see. I think their username was Serpent King Sol 42. They gave me permission to use their name, so maybe I'll link their page in the description as well. But they mentioned the pros and cons to watching too many tutorials. I found that very interesting because originally I hadn't thought about it, but as I went through the week, I wondered, I guess there are a few different negative things that can come from watching too many of these. So, I mean, the pros are obviously you're learning how to draw. That's kind of the obvious one. I kind of want to go over the negatives first before thinking into more of the positives. The negatives being the important one in my head, at least, is you can't really find your own style if you're constantly going off of somebody else's work. And it's okay to do that, but doing it too much, you'll never find your own style that way. For some people who are probably wondering, maybe not, I don't know. A lot of my first drawings, the origins of those were like Sailor Moon themed and Legend of Zelda themed, but mostly anime based, that type of thing. So again, most of my drawings have like that kind of style, which is very different from what we're doing today. But that's kind of the thing, and especially watching just one person. If you're going off of this tutorial, I would recommend watching other people do something similar as well, just because there's a lot you can learn from multiple people. I'm not the only one you can learn from, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm the only one you can learn from, because that would be kind of, it wouldn't be right. And, I don't think a lot of people would fall for that anyway. But that's kind of what I consider the most important negatives to tutorials. And I used to do the same thing. I would watch everybody else draw. And that kind of goes into my second point. You can kind of get discouraged watching other people draw and be like, man, I wish I could draw like them. That's not really what you want to go for. And you know what, I do get it, but you want to find your own style and you want to find the confidence in yourself. And I think I covered it in the last video too. Comparing yourself to your old work as opposed to somebody else's work. I feel like a balance between both is good, but you want to focus more on your own art and your own progress instead of what other people can do in comparison to you. For instance, every time I look on DeviantArt, that's my main platform, I will see so many different wonderful pieces made by other people, and every time I do it, I think about it every time, and I think, man, I wish I could draw like them. And sometimes that's okay because it will, um, it'll give you a reason to improve. Um, but again, if you do it too much, you can get discouraged. So I don't think. I mean, you have to have a balance. I think that's my whole thing here. Balance with anything is pretty much key to success. Um, watching tutorials is fine as long as you don't live by the tutorials. You have to do things on your own sometimes, and learning from a video is fine. Practicing from a video or a reference is fine. But at some point you want to, and there's no rush for it either, but at some point you're going to find that you need to draw things your way and not the way other people do it. There are certain techniques that you will need, but they can be implemented in any way, shape, or form, and there are different styles and different ways to accomplish those little rules. All right, let's see. So now that I've blocked in some color, I'm going to start adding more fur. Again, we're going to try, and I forget this too, we're going to try to do more of the actual texture here. I feel like that's going to be the main thing. Wow, it's only been 20 minutes. I feel like I've been talking forever, but that's my fault. I am the one that decided to do this super late instead of right away. So let's see. Let's try to get a darker color. So this color is going to be a little bit duller. When you go to do it shading, duller colors work a little bit better. Let's see if I can get that. Need to just a little bit. That's another thing I can cover here. If you're looking at pencil work, there are different types of lead or not lead, graphite technically, and different sizes if you're using mechanical pencils. That might actually make this easier. So if you're using a regular pencil, like a number 2 pencil from school, that works perfectly with certain things and certain papers. When you go on to more detailed drawings, though, there are other types of pencils that you might consider, or even charcoal. Charcoal works too, and there are different types of graphite that are harder or softer depending on what texture and what shading you need. Let's see. It's hard to go into detail here, but if you want to check up here really quick, so I'm using a replica colored pencil basically for my artwork here. And this works black and white too if you want to do it that way. And then I can change the size here. So most pencils, for this, it doesn't go lower than 1, but most pencils will be, let's see if I'm remembering correctly. For mechanical, it's 0.3 to 1.0. Those are the ranges that I've seen in mechanical pencils. That's what I usually end up using. So that digitally, it doesn't really go any lower than that. I'm going to use 3.4 for a second, just to show. So that's the size of lines you get for that. We'll say that's like the 0.3. This will be like the 0.5. That's a little too much. Well, this is more like the 1.0, and this is maybe 0.7. Let me get rid of that though. Just wanted to go into detail about that really quick. But different sizes of graphite will help you with smaller details or larger details depending on how much you're trying to cover. Let's see here. A little bit down there. So when you go to put in details like this, you kind of want to, if you're blending, you don't want to press too hard because you do want to give the fur a more lifelike quality here. I'm going to be jumping back and forth between the pencil and the blender here. So I don't know if this is visible or not over here, but there are some points over here that look more like tufts of hair. Everything else right now kind of looks more like a cartoon. And I will be trying to fix that in a minute. But detailed stuff like this, I know I've done some paintings that take weeks. I'm not really trying to go for that here, but we'll see how this goes. So far, an hour, and let's see, what time is it now? An hour and almost an hour and a half. We've gotten pretty far. Again, I wasn't expecting to get that far in just 2 videos, but let's see. So I'm going to step back from the face for a little bit. I should kind of shade this in. That's another thing. It's a little bit, I don't want to say haphazard, but it's another thing you might want to try if you're having difficulty in one area of the drawing. And that's moving on to another portion of the drawing so you don't get overwhelmed. So I'm going to start with the tail and the rear over here and do some, oops, I'm still on the blender, do some simple, everything's moved over. That's my program being silly, I think. That might just be me. Sometimes it's the program, sometimes it's me. I have trouble figuring out what the difference is. But I think I covered this last time too. You kind of want to take a step back, see what your progress is, see how it looks from afar. You can either tilt your seat back, move back a little bit, or even like push the paper out from in front of you. I've had some people tell me looking at it from an upside down angle shows some not mistakes. I believe as Bob Ross puts it, they're happy accidents. I still I feel bad. I still need to watch some of his videos. Maybe I'll do that in my next free time. I think, let's see, hopefully soon. But for now, it does show you some things you can add to the drawing if you look at it from afar. Let's see here. Trying to block in some more colors. So this is going to end up being a lot lighter than what I'm doing right now, but I wanted to cover all of the orange first and make sure I blocked in all of that. That is something I personally do, and I think this is, again, I'm actually doing this out of order a bit. I mentioned it before. I think I mentioned it before at least. You want to start from light to dark. So that I added some dark there. So when you go to put it in it, flub number 3. I gotta start having a counter for this stuff. But when you go to put in color for your drawings, you want to start with the lightest color possible. That way, if you need to darken something, that's easy. Putting in darker colors is easy. Adding highlights and things like that is more difficult in pencil. And again, for me it's easier because digitally I can just add, let's do that really quick. I can literally just add whatever I want. I can add white there, or over here, and I can easily delete that too. That's not something you can do with just pencil. And I'm going to be honest, pencil takes longer, but I think regular pencil looks so much better in most instances. Oops, that's the wrong color. In most instances than digital. But I feel, you know what, that's another thing that I can compare pros and cons to. Everything, you can do this with anything, pros and cons to everything. pencil takes longer, but the quality looks nicer, in my personal opinion. Others may disagree. Digital, I feel like it doesn't take nearly as long, and you can do more detail quickly. And it does stay longer because you have a digital copy. Um, but there's a feel to traditional materials that you just can't get with digital materials. So if you feel discouraged and think that traditional, if you're just starting out, I mean, or if you're practicing in general, um, there's nothing wrong with traditional. In fact, I admire it greatly, um, because you can put in so much more time. On a personal level, I tend to do things as quickly as possible, and I'm trying to slow down for this. Let me fix that really quick. My eraser didn't want to work. There we go. That's better. I've lost my train of thought completely. I apologize. Oh, I do tend to speed through things, and I think that's why I've always liked speed paints, which is why this channel is mostly speed paints, sped up recordings. Um, that might be another, you know, con to tutorials and speed paints is you get used to seeing somebody else do it at a supersonic speed, and it's not realistic, to be fair. Because when you do a speed paint, you're recording your process, but it's sped up, and it almost, to some degree, it almost looks like they're doing it in real time, and they're not. That might be part of the reason why I hate going so slowly on any drawing progress. I'm doing a lot better on this than I would normally, to be perfectly honest. But let's darken that just a little bit more. But if you have trouble with that kind of thing, that's why I'm moving around a lot, trying to block in details here and there. Moving around a lot will help with that, I think, unless you're very, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Unless you're very specific with where you want to put things color-wise. Let's zoom in for a second. So if you see here, there is a little bit more detail. It looks a little more, I'm not going to say 3D, because it's technically not 3D, but it gives off the appearance of 3D, which is kind of what you want to do with this type of drawing when you're trying to draw in a more realistic, let's see if I can actually get this color back a little darker. So like what I did with the face here earlier, it looks a little more 3D. I will have to add more colors to the mouth later, because he is missing part of his jaw and his tongue and teeth. That's another thing I want to cover really quick. I feel like I use the word cover too much. I'll have to fix that in the future. But there's a reason why I haven't done the facial details in the eyes yet, and this is something I kind of learned from a peer at school. The way she described it, she was painting a raven in class one day. It was an art class, so it was fine. And she hadn't put in the eyes yet. And I thought it looked a little weird, so I asked her, like, hey, why haven't you put in the eyes yet? You've done everything top to bottom besides that. And the way she put it was that she puts the eyes in last to complete the drawing because it adds the soul in, because the eyes are the windows to the soul, and it adds the soul into the drawing at the very end and breathes the last of the life into it. Um, Obviously, you don't have to do it that way. You can put in the eyes when you go to put the details in on the face. I just kind of liked the way she explained that, so I've been doing it like that ever since, and it kind of helps me, quote unquote, finish a drawing, so I don't work too long on it. Um, so once I've decided, okay, I think I'm done with the body, I can go back to the eyes and be like, okay, place the colors and the details here, and then once the eyes are done, the drawing's done. Again, you don't have to do it that way. That's something I do on a personal level just because I respected her artwork. Again, going back to the tutorial thing and pros and cons, I really looked up to that, and I decided that's how I wanted to do all of my uh, anime drawings when it came to faces and things like that. And that's kind of what I want to do with this tiger here. It might not actually work out for this one because it's all on one layer, but we'll see in the long run. It's turned out pretty well so far. It's not. Let's see. Yeah, let's take another step back really quick. See that? So yeah, if you see here, this part looks a little bit more 3D. The legs here, I still need to add darker colors. But it's got some depth to it. And if you look here, that's got a little bit more depth than like here or down here. And we'll get to that in a second. Let's see, let's zoom out of this guy really quick and see. Okay, so his back is a little bit darker fur tones than the rest of him, except for on his face. This is tilting a little bit again. That's probably going to happen a few more times tonight. Let's see. Where do I not want to go here? Let's add a little bit of a little brighter red. Just add a little bit more color here. Now, I do apologize again for being super tired and a little more unfocused than the last video. Not really setting a good example here. I found when it comes to drawing in general, I'm a little more focused on the drawing. Sometimes, and again, not always, but sometimes the less you think about what you're doing, the better it looks. Again, each person is different. You want to find where you fit in that. Excuse me, I need to get another drink. Okay. Hopefully the tea works a little better today since I've been basically talking all day. Hopefully my voice doesn't sound too gravelly or anything. Let's see, where was I? I apologize again. One day I will keep track of my memories, but for now, this is what we've got. Shade this a little bit. So again, I'm blending this in pretty hard. And I can easily add details back in later. I would not recommend that. Digitally, it's easier. Traditionally, you want to have a lighter blender. Let's see. Back up a bit again. I think it's about time. We'll do a little bit more down here with the orange, and then we'll get back into the lighter tones, which is what I should have started out with. Let's see. Let's do over here next. Get a little bit of color from there. Now this color over here, you can see it's over by the green. If you notice, if you have a digital program and you click on colors and photos, you'll notice that most things, especially in nature here, there's a bunch of greens in here, but you'll notice that there's yellows and blues and colors you would not expect to be in with all the greens. So when I clicked on his fur over here, it's got a little bit of green in there, which is like right in between here, a little closer to the blue. It's got a weird color in there. That's actually natural. If you're looking to desaturate the colors a little bit, that's fine. Especially if you're doing pencil or black and white in general. But yeah, in photos and certain works, there's a lot of you might find that they're strange at first. They're natural. So up here, he's got a little bit more blue in his fur up here, and I'm going to have to fix that down here to make it blend a little bit. But he's got a little bit more of bluish whites and reddish whites. That's why this looks a little bit reddish. But closer down by the water, and it might just be a reflection of the water on the fur. That sounds a little bit backwards, but it does kind of work that way with colors in general too. Some of the green in the water and the grass here is actually reflecting on the white fur, and it bounces back as a little bit of color that you don't really notice at first. Bounces back onto your eyes that way. Let's see if I can blur this a little bit more and add more depth. Hopefully this video is a little bit more helpful than the last. I know, and I'm doing it again this time, I've been saying a lot. This time it's actually because I'm tired, not because I'm nervous. But I'm sure the next time I do this, it'll be the exact same way as the first one. Let's see. And I'm going to go ahead and state it here as well, because I know there's going to be a third part to this at the very least, because we're going to have to add more detail, especially to the fur here. Let's see how much time we've got left. 22 minutes. Yeah, there's definitely going to be a part 3, because I haven't even touched the stripes on this guy yet. If there's any topics, questions, concerns, please let me know. I want to be a little bit more efficient with this and more, what are the words I'm looking for? More structured, I guess. Because I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, but not only is my memory bad, but I don't have any structure to this whatsoever. I think I'll have something covered. I have topics written down and like, okay, yeah, I'll talk about this for this length of time, and then I'll talk about this, and that'll take up this amount of time. And so far, that has not worked. And I don't really want to write out a script or anything like that, because I feel like that's not really efficient either for this type of thing anyway. Especially because sometimes art can be unpredictable. Again, with the happy accidents, or let's see, what are the words I'm looking for? A potential mistake can be turned into something else, or what you intended for one thing can work out in favor for something else. So a script for this kind of thing really doesn't necessarily work. Which is why I guess I'm trying to reach out. And again, if my sentences were a little bit more structured. I guess in general, I just need to practice speaking as well. So I don't say, or click my mouth, or say, like, every other word. There we go then. I'll try to get better over time, but having some subjects here and there to talk about while I'm adding details and fur and things like that will, I hope it will help at least. Theoretically, it will help. I think that was another thing. I think I brought it up and didn't finish it. Being tired and being distracted kind of helps me work with certain drawings. Let's see, I'm adding too many darks over here. Let's do a little bit of that, and I can add some white over here to help highlight that a little bit better. I do feel like, even though it's not on a personal level, like I can't see you guys and you guys can't see me, but being able to speak like this, just in general, kind of helps. Both with my speaking skill, there's flub, I think 4. Are we at 4? Speaking skills. There we go. Clearly not enough because I'm still flubbing, but over time that'll help. I'm pretty sure. But it helps with that, and then it also distracts me a little bit because I'm not thinking about, oh, where am I going to put these lines? How am I going to do this? I'm just kind of doing it, which I guess explanation-wise doesn't help, but the placement at least. Let's see, I made his Made that a little too furry, but I can fix that. See if that's... Maybe we'll try something over here and see if that fits. There we go. I've made his shoulder here. That's what you want to call it. A little too fluffy, so we're going to add a little bit of darker tones here and see if that helps. And add a few highlights about there. See if we can make that merge. I think somebody's outside messing with a car because I hear some wheels squeaking. But that's kind of normal in my neighborhood. I've got a neighbor who works on cars, and usually it's engines revving, not this late at night, but seeing as it's almost midnight. But that's kind of normal. I don't know if anybody could hear that, but anyway, we're gonna try to ignore that because it's not really that big of an issue. Again, normal noises around this area. Let's take another step back and see what we've got. It's not bad. Again, I think this is still a little too fluffy. I was worried that I wouldn't make this guy fluffy enough, but I seem to be having the opposite problem. Let's grab some of the lighter colors here. So if you notice with the white that I just clicked on here, again, there's some strange green here, and I think when I clicked here, there was, oh, not that one. Where was it? Maybe it was lower down here. There was a section that I clicked that looks more yellow. So when I click on this one, it automatically goes to yellow. If you have the chance to use a digital program and you're wondering about color theory is pretty interesting too. I'm going to go over this again. This is just over his shoulder. Look at how many colors are in there. That's amazing. If you think about it really hard, that's amazing. Our eyes can only register so many colors, but then when you go across the screen, I don't know. I find that interesting, at least. There's just so much in nature that's interesting, and maybe that's why, drawing animals is so popular. I hadn't thought about it that way, but now that I'm thinking about it, sitting here, it makes sense. Here's another thing that I'm starting to notice. I think I'm putting too much emphasis on this leg, and it's making him look shorter this way. Let me zoom out of this picture here. It might, yeah. I've got it angled weird, so this should be a little farther back and less detailed, and I should be putting more emphasis on this leg. Let's see. How can I fix that? I can definitely add some lighter colors here, put less emphasis on that leg. So let's try that. That might make it a little too light, but we'll start there. This might be too dark as well. So if you're using this as your tutorial, maybe do lighter colors than what I've started with, because at least with the whites and grays, I have gone too dark and too fluffy. So let's see. I might be able to add a little bit of white. Let me get it on the right tool. Add some there. That's going to look a little weird at first, but let's try that and see what that does for this part of the leg, and see if that puts less emphasis on that one. And to be fair, I don't have to go perfectly on this photo here, but I want to try to get it as accurate as possible. Now, here's another thing. I'm going to try not to do it for this. Let me save really quick. I'm going to show you really quick. Here's something that I can easily do that I'm not going to do. I'll revert back to it. So I have this tool, so I can select a specific area, and if I don't want to move this part, I can just select this area and just move him over a bit, and then I can fill in this part and make up for the fact. I'm not going to do that. Let's use this instead, make it more accurate. There we go. I'm not going to do that just because I feel it like it wouldn't be fair for this specific tutorial. We're going to do it this way instead, so it doesn't mess anybody else up who's using this. Yeah, let's lighten up the rest of this leg. Here's another detail that might be helpful, especially since I'm trying to fix this really quick. I'm gonna add a little bit more white over here and see if that does anything. I might have mentioned this in the last video too. Man, I really am like a broken record. When you're doing, especially for backgrounds and landscapes and things like that, or cityscape, things that are farther away, you're gonna find that they're usually gonna end up being bluer, grayer, and duller. That helps with an illusion of distance. That way, again, to make a drawing more 3D, that's something that you can add to put more detail into it. I'm gonna add, let's see, made a few mistakes here, but we can work with those. Puts a little bit more placement and everything. So I'm gonna do that and then add a little bit more white, since I missed a few things there. And again, I'm working at a very strange speed. I keep going back and forth between working slowly on an area and throwing in patches. I would again recommend, especially if you're using pencil, use smaller strokes. Now, now I sound like one of my high school teachers. She used to teach art. She retired a year before I graduated, and she would always tell me to use smaller strokes for my artwork because it would put more detail into it. Now what I've done here, it's less 3D over here, and I've made like kind of a separate layer here by accident. I'm going to add a little bit more white here, and I'm just going to redo the shading for that. And at the time, I didn't really think she knew what she was doing, so I apologize if she's listening. I'm not going to name her just in case. But there was one point where she didn't like us using mechanical pencils in her class, and she was always telling us to use smaller strokes. So there was one day, and this isn't really a good story. I mean, it wasn't bad or anything, but like, there was one day where I was just really tired of listening to her. And by the way, she wasn't saying it to be mean. She was saying it to be, to help me. But I was tired of listening to her say the same things over and over again because I guess I wasn't learning at that point. And I turned in this work and I specifically did not do what she said to do, but I tried to blend it. She didn't like us blending either. I tried to blend it so she wouldn't notice, and I guess I did an okay job doing that because she didn't notice. I don't recommend doing this. This is not something to don't ever do that. If you don't agree with them, just silently take it. If you don't agree with them, just practice it anyway. You don't, at least for that period of time, if it's not something that's sticking with you, keep practicing at it. Don't do what I did. I was lucky that she didn't get upset with me. I was lucky that I got a decent grade on that and didn't get yelled at for, not doing what I was told. But again, don't don't do that. Um, it's funny thinking back on it now, but it's not really, it's not really helpful to you or the instructor in the long run. In doing that, I kind of I wouldn't say fell back, but it took me longer to learn, and I'm still having trouble with it now. As you can tell, I'm kind of all over the place with this. So some of again, this looks fine, but some of the patches aren't turning out right, and I'm not using small enough strokes, and I'm not doing, again, because of that moment, I'm not doing what I was taught, and it didn't stick with me as well. So even if you don't like it, and you're taking classes for this, if you don't agree right away, keep trying. You might not get it right away, and that's okay. But keep trying at it, because it might be a lesson that sticks with you and makes more sense. I shouldn't have done what I did, because then I'd have less of a problem here. But you know what? It's a good thing for anybody listening, because that means they won't make the same mistakes I did. Hope that makes sense, and hope that wasn't too terrible of a rant. I'm gonna go back to orange really quick just so I can plop in some more color here. This is looking a little bit duller than what I intended, but we'll add a little bit here. And then I haven't done much with the tail, so I might go over there before we do anything else on the rest of this. I do need to put more detail in here as well, and with the feet. Feet in general, with any of my drawings, I've had problems with as well. One day we'll get a grasp on words. Let's see, fix that little tuft there. Let's go to the tail. At some point I do need to add in some of the stripes. I've been reluctant because, again, this part here. Let's take another step back. It's looking better. His body's looking a little bit longer. What else can I do to remedy that? Oh, but going back to the bluer, grayer, and duller rant that I was talking about before, there's some separation between this leg and the leg back here, just because I added a little bit of extra blue to the back here, just to represent the fact that it is indeed farther away. I'm going to add just a little bit darker, since there's a little bit of it's kind of blending together a little bit too much now. Right there should be good. But especially for buildings, buildings will have a little bit more of a grayish tone than most other, like animals or plants. Plants will usually be a little bit bluer. Animals, it's a little combination of both. That's what I've found, at least. For your drawings, it might end up being a little bit different. Let's take the canvas out for a second. But in my experience, that's made it easier for shading and coloring backgrounds and animals and things like that, just in general. Again, each drawing is different, and different tactics might work for that. But that's the general rule for distance, if that makes sense. I'm going to have to add better detail here and here, but let's go over. Yeah, I'm going to have to lighten, or at least add some greens here. Really quick before we go to the tail, I'm going to put a little bit more, if I can get this right, a bit more blending this way, just so it all comes together. Go back and forth here. I want to go a little bit more outward on this, just because, maybe a little bit more forward. Kind of goes again with the lighter, starting lighter and then going darker. Because if I go lighter and then add the darker colors this way, it gives more of a, it kind of connects the fur down here a little bit better. I'm gonna add a little bit more white this way too. Yeah, I wanted to do more detail into the tail, but connecting this is kind of important as well. It brings everything together, and it looked a little bit, separate, like the head was, a little bit more apart than the rest of the body, but that's another thing. You want to make sure everything looks like it fits together. Not quite like a puzzle piece, but that might be the best comparison for this as well. Let's see. His fur kind of goes out this way a little bit more. Let's try just a little bit more blending. Now, again, blending works for this on a digital program. When you go to do this in pencil, you're going to want to do the original lines in the same angle that you see here. So I've been going like up and down and up and down. That's not going to work for regular pencil. You want to go in the same direction every time. So I'm going to go ahead and do another demonstration over here. Let's make that look a little bit nicer. So if you go like one way, you see that there's like, it's a nice, what are the words I'm looking for? Oops, let's fix that. Usually that won't happen. It'll show a nice gradient in one way, but then if you go this way, it's going to take away some of the gradient. And that's going to be the same with pencil. Well, no. With pencil, it's not really going to do the same thing. With some blenders, or if you're just using your finger to blend work, the finger has a little bit less control when you're blending, but you'll find that it's not as easy to do just because everything will darken instead of working the way you want it to. So you kind of want to just stick and go in the direction that you want the color to go in or the shading to go in, just so that it fits together and isn't blurred or darkened too much. Okay, we're finally going to get into some detail of the tail. Let's fix that a little bit just so I have the placement. And I know I went over the clumps. I haven't quite, the tufts of hair. I haven't quite gotten into the full extent of that. When you go in to do this with a pencil, you're going to want to do smaller lines. So start with that for a demonstration, and then layer it. And you're going to want to do multiple layers. Again, start with the lightest, but you're going to want to do multiple little layers to make sure they all work. And again, blending is fine, just to make it work. And if you want a small, I'm getting word switch now. You're going to want to start with small patches just to block it in, and then you're going to go back and connect them and add more as the drawing progresses. I hope that makes sense. It's hard to show here. If I can find a way to do something like this traditionally, right now I don't. Maybe one day that's something I'll look into and work on so that it makes more sense pencil-wise. Let's see if we can mix the orange and the white here. Okay, take another step back. I need some darker colors up here. We're going to try to give it the illusion of a curve, kind of like the tail here. It's darker here and goes lighter as it goes up to the main part of the body. I might not be able to get that sort of detail until after I've put in the stripes, but we're going to go ahead and give it a try here anyway. Let's see. Let's take that and let's see. There might be okay. Okay. Let me take another sip of tea so I don't dehydrate. Okay, and we still have, oh, we're just about done here. I'm going to work a little bit longer. I've got 10 seconds on the timer. But I'm going to go ahead and put in a little bit more color tail here and see if we can get the illusion of the curve. There's the timer. Let's see. Hopefully this one was a little bit more informative than the last one. I try to go into more detail about the pencil work, or the digital pencil work here. Let's see. Let's go a little bit more this way. Oops, it did not switch the colors like I thought it did. There we go. I think that's another thing I like about this program specifically. You can switch between two different colors and not have to like take this tool and click around a lot. Let's see. As I'm finishing this up, want to remind everyone, if you've got any topics you'd like me to talk about so I'm not just ranting like an idiot, just let me know. I'll be looking for comments, not comments, for topics on Facebook and DeviantArt as well. So if you follow me there, go ahead and look for that. Again, feedback, criticism, comments in general are fine too, I guess. But I'm looking to. Oh, I'm getting another Snapchat. That happened last time too. I'm surprised anybody's up at this time. I'm surprised nobody's trying to sleep. But let's see. You got a little bit more color there. I don't think I'm going to be able to get the exact curvature until I add in the stripes, but for now, let's take another step back. So, in looking at this, I'm noticing that because we blended the fur of the head into the body, it looks a little less 3D. That's something we should be able to fix next time. I'm not sure how many parts this is going to be. I'm estimating at least. I know I mean, part 3 is going to be a thing, but there might be a part 4 and maybe a part 5. We'll see how it goes, but hopefully this was helpful. And to all my coworkers and people who got back to me for feedback, hopefully this was better than the last one. I'm sorry. I was so tired, and I didn't intend for this to be rushed, but so much came up, and I wanted to make sure this got recorded in time so I could still, get it out there on my usual schedule. But I think that's where we're gonna end it today. Let me save this really quick. I'm gonna save an extra. Let's get the sketch out of there really quick. Save this as another work in progress, and I'll show you the difference that we made today. Over here, let's get that out of the way. Let's see. I'll name this one work in progress 2. Save it as a JPEG like the last one. Oops, change that to excellent. And let's see if I can bring that up really quick. Sorry, these are some projects that I've been working on the side. Might take it a second to come up to. There it is. So this is what we started with last week, and this is the progress we've made this week. Quite a difference, but we've still got a long ways to go. So hopefully you'll join me in the next one. And I think we've covered everything today. But yeah, again, hope this was helpful, and I will see you in part 3. Bye, guys.